Hi, boys and girls. We are going to be working on Module 3, Week 2, Day 4 today for our virtual day. So make sure you're really paying attention and listening. We will have our Google Doc that you'll go back and forth to answer questions. So make sure you have both of those open. Our agenda today is we're going to go over our objective. We're going to read aloud Gingerbread for Liberty. We're going to go over our objective and success criteria. And I do, a we do, and a you do for synthesizing. And then we have our closure and reflection. So here are all the ways that you can be a successful reader. Today, we're just focusing on synthesize. We're going to talk about what synthesize means and how you can synthesize and how that can make you become a more successful reader. The story we're reading today, Gingerbread for Liberty, is a biography. A biography tells about a person's life. It gives information about why this person is important, and it shows ways the person has made a difference. So the story we're reading is about a real person. It tells about that person's life, and it's written by someone else. So the person that wrote it is different from the person they're telling about. The author is different, but it's going to tell you important things about the person and their life. So I'd like you to go ahead and go to your Google Doc. I want you to type in your name. And then I want you to answer the multiple choice question about biography. What is a biography? Go ahead and pause and do that. When you're ready, come on back. Welcome back. We're going to be reading Gingerbread for Liberty. I think you're going to really enjoy this story. It's about a baker who makes gingerbread for the army during a time of war. It might sounds interesting, right? How can a baker help during a time of war? So let's read to find out. Gingerbread for Liberty. Everyone in Philadelphia knew the gingerbread baker, his honest face, his booming laugh, and of course his gingerbread, the best in all the 13 colonies. His big flowery hands turned out countless. Sorry, I can't see. Let's start over. And of course, let me see if I can make it bigger. I apologize. There we go. And of course, his gingerbread, the best in all the 13 colonies. His big flowery hands turned out castles and queens, horses and cows and hens, each detail drawn in sweet, buttery icing, with his greatest skill and care. And yet, despite his care, there always seemed to be some broken pieces for the hungry children who followed their noses to the spicy-smelling shop. No empty bellies here, the baker bellowed. Not in my America. So you might, at especially Christmas time, make gingerbread men. Well, he's making shapes and things out of gingerbread. You can see a rabbit over here. Here it looks like a plant, an owl, a star, and then he draws the details on with icing. See how the house has icing details in the windows and the chimney? And I like what it says when he says, no empty bellies here. So when he had broken pieces of his gingerbread, he would give that to kids that were hungry or kids that didn't have food so that they could have food and not be hungry. Seems like a pretty nice guy, doesn't he? Let's see if he's still that way. For once upon a time, he had been young and hungry too. He had followed his own nose to this new world, where a hard-working young man could open his own bakery and always have enough to eat. But now something was in the air, besides the smell of baking gingerbread. Newspapers shouted, "Revolution! Independence! Liberty!" Boys rolled up blankets, shouldered guns, and kissed their mothers goodbye. The baker hung his apron up. He dusted the flour off his hands. "Where are you going?" asked his wife. To fight for my America, he said. I was a soldier once. That was long ago and far away, she said. You are a baker now. You are old and fat. So he wants to go and fight for the revolution and for independence and liberty. But his wife's saying, you're too old and too fat to do that. Let's see if he goes ahead and goes to help his America. The baker knew his wife was right, but he knew also that he loved his country. Somehow he had to find a way to help. He packed his bags and went to join General Washington. General Washington did not say the baker was old and fat. General Washington was too polite. Anyway, he had other troubles on his mind. I want you to think about this question. Where is the baker going? Go ahead and answer that multiple choice question. And then also, I want you to answer the short answer of how can he help? So think of ways that the baker could help the army. So you have 2 questions to answer now. Where's the baker going? And how can he help? What are ways you think he can help? When you're ready, come on back. Welcome back. Let's keep reading. The baker rolled up his sleeves. No empty bellies here, he told General Washington. Not in my America. But bigger trouble was on the way, across the ocean. So this is across the ocean in England where the king is talking, because the king thinks right now that he is in charge of America. Your Majesty, those Americans think they can beat your redcoats. Ha 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 ha! Humph! What if they're right? Ha 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 ha! Huh? The King of England wrote to other rulers and hired their armies to help him squash the revolution. So now the King of England is saying, hey, can you other countries come help me? America is trying to fight and become a free place. Can you come help me to fight them? I wonder if people will send their armies. I want you to pause here for your first secret word. Your first secret word is bake. B-A-K-E, bake. Go ahead and pause and type bake into your Google form and then come back when you're finished. Welcome back. Let's keep reading. When the ship sailed into sight, even General Washington turned pale. Who had ever seen such an army? Not me, definitely not me. Look at the baker. I have. So when the king went to all these other countries and said, can you help me fight in this war? They said, yes. And look at all the people they're sending over. Wonder what's going to happen. These soldiers come from the land where I was born, the baker told General Washington. Let me go speak to them. Perhaps I can persuade them that we are not their enemies. Perhaps I can even persuade them to switch sides. If you are caught, you will be killed, Washington warned. The baker smiled. Then I must not be caught. So the baker is going to go try to persuade the other armies that they are not the enemies, that they should all work together. I wonder if it's going to work. I want you to think for a minute. What does persuade mean? This is one thing we worked on a lot with Author's Purpose. So go back to your Google form, and in the multiple choice question, I want you to tell me what persuade means. Go ahead and pause, and when you're ready, you can come back. Welcome back. Let's keep reading. In the darkest hours of the night, he rowed across the bay. With each dip of his oar, he thought of words to win the soldiers over to the American cause. So he's thinking, what words can I use in their language to help me win them over so that they join America and they don't fight against America? Revolution! Splash. Befreiung. Independence! Splash. Unabhängigkeit. Liberty! Splash, splash. Freiheit. So he's thinking of words he can say in their language so that they'll understand to join America. But when he looked into their hungry faces, all his fine words slipped away. What could he say? So he's looking at these soldiers and they're hungry. They're probably tired. And all those fancy words he thought of just went out of his brain, and he said, I have a bake shop, he began. As the baker spoke, the soldiers seemed to see the fragrant steam rising from his ovens. They could almost smell the spicy gingerbread and the taste and sweet buttery icing on their tongues. And you always have enough to eat? The soldiers asked. No empty bellies here, the baker told them. Not in my America. So the baker told the soldiers, you could tell they looked hungry, so he said, I'm going to come bake for you. Come and eat. You're not going to have empty bellies, not in his America. You're going to eat and be full and not go hungry. Your Majesty, we just don't understand. These hired armies seem to disappear. So it must have worked because the king hired all these armies and now they're all gone. I wonder if they believe the baker and they want to join America now to help with their revolution. Many, many loaves and battles later. The British have surrendered. The revolution is over. We won. My work is done, the baker cried. Washington said, not quite. So the Americans beat the British. So the Americans have their own freedoms and can come up with their own government and laws. I want you to pause and go to your Google Sheet for your next secret word. Your next secret word is cookie. C-O-O-K-I-E, cookie. C-O-O-K-I-E, cookie. Spell it one more time. If you think you're not going to remember, write it down on your slate so you remember. C-O-O-K-I-E. Come on back when you're ready. Let's keep reading. Did he bake the British soldiers gingerbread for their dessert? We'll never know. They didn't leave a crumb. A gift from George Washington and his baker. So perhaps they gave the British soldiers a treat for their dessert after they won the war. And they said, we don't know because there's no crumbs left. So our objective today is I can identify important ideas in a given text. So we're going to be looking for important ideas. Today we will. Today we're going to identify the important ideas by thinking about details that you've read. And why are we going to do this? Because this helps us synthesize and determine the big idea. So what is this big word synthesize? Let's look at this poster. All of the important ideas in a text are like puzzle pieces that when added together equal a big idea. So you can see on your screen, important idea, important idea, important idea, important idea. So all of those are like puzzle pieces that you have to put together. When you're putting those puzzle pieces together, that's called synthesize. So you synthesize to figure out what does all of that mean? What do all those important pieces mean? To synthesize, you begin by identifying the most important ideas in a text. Next, you think about all of the important ideas and ask how that information is important to. By asking this question, you will understand the big idea of the text. So again, you're looking at the important ideas, putting the puzzle together. How do those important ideas make sense together? And then putting them together to come up with the big idea. When good readers read about an event that happened in history, they identify the important details and explain what happened. Next, they think about those details and ask themselves how it helped to change history. So let's look at the posters. Synthesize. When you synthesize, you put together information from different parts of a text to see the author's ideas in new ways. So again, there's those important ideas. You put them together, you synthesize them, and then figure out, what does that all mean? What is the big idea? So to be successful, we're going to be using our race strategy and really working on restating the question. So here's a question. What was he known for in America? So what was the baker known for in America? So I'm going to restate my question. And I'm going to change it to the baker because I think that makes sense. The baker is known for baking delicious gingerbread in America. So I restated that sentence. The baker is known for baking delicious gingerbread in America. And I answered it. And I knew that because on this page it tells me that the baker was famous for his gingerbread. It was really yummy. People liked to eat it. It had wonderful icing. And he also was able to feed the hungry with the extra pieces. Okay, let's go to our next slide. Oops. Let's read this question. What was his job when he joined the army? What was the baker's job when he joined the army? I would like you to go to your Google Slides and answer this question. Make sure you answer it in a complete sentence, starting with a capital letter, ending with a punctuation mark. Make sure you restate the question. Go ahead and pause it, and when you're ready, come on back. Here's another question. What did he tell General Washington he was going to do? The baker told General Washington that he was going to talk to the other armies and see if they would be friends with the Americans. So remember, the baker did not want to have these people fight them. He wanted to say, hey, can you see that maybe we could work together, that we could be peaceful together, and we can be friends instead of fighting one another. Why is the baker an important part of history? So I want you to think of that for a minute. It says, why is the baker an important part of history? Is it because his baking convinced the soldiers to support the Americans? Or because his baking made them want to move to America? So did it make the other soldiers want to support America and help them? Or did it make those other people want to move to America and come here? Go ahead and answer that on your Google Docs. And come back when you're ready. Okay, so let's work on synthesizing. So we had to synthesize by putting all these important ideas together. We know that the baker wanted to help the American army. We knew that he loved America because he kept saying, "My America." No one goes hungry in my America. We know that he was able to talk to the enemy troops. So if I put all that together, the big idea is that the baker was an important part of American history because he was able to convince the enemies to support America and not fight America. Let's think about this sentence. How do you think George Washington reacted when the baker explained what happened with the hired soldiers? So what do you think happened when the baker came back and said, "Hey, I talked to these soldiers. I also fed them. So I gave them food because they looked really, really hungry." How do you think General Washington reacted to that? That's our last question today for reading. Go ahead and answer that on your Google Sheet and then submit it to me. Thank you for listening. When you're finished, you may work on I Read on your HMH reading site. Have a great day. Da-da-da-da.